Wow, hi YouTube. Just want to have a chat, really, just you and me, about prepping. So we've got prepping, we've got bushcraft, and we've got survival. Now, for me, being a survivalist and practicing bushcraft are opportunities to practice the skill of self-reliance. You know, so all the obvious, how to purify your own water, how to make fire, how to cook and live off the grid. And so we learn these skills, we practice them through kind of being bushcraft and survivalists. But you know, hopefully, if it all ever comes on top, you know, we fall back on those skills that we've obtained and practiced, and we bring them into our homes. You know, so no one's bugging out, no one's leaving their home unless there's a catastrophe, unless it's 5 feet underwater, unless, you know, a hurricane is hit and your home just isn't there, or there's no possible way of kind of staying where you are. You know, which in recent history did happen. You know, the Somerset levels flooded a few years ago. 33,000 people were flooded out of their homes. You know, so bad things do happen to good people. The last 6 to 9 months, I haven't seen anybody put any films up or talk about prepping. So that's what I want to talk about this evening, really. But I just want to tell you where I think the UK is. We've just had a general election, and we elected a majority government, so we don't have a coalition anymore, so the UK has stable government. We've had the referendum with Scotland leaving the United Kingdom, and they decided to stay, and that's good. It's summertime. Every time you look at the news, there are stories of unemployment going down, and the high streets are starting to revive. You know, so they're all the sort of stories in the press, and that's all good, isn't it? That's all good news. Yeah. But what I want to put on the table is sort of backstories, really. Let's start with our emergency services. So the Metropolitan Police Service and the Commissioner of Police have just sold New Scotland Yard. And they sold New Scotland Yard because their budget from central government has been cut by £600 million. On top of that, the Commissioner of Police went on record recently and said that over the next 2 years they have to find cuts of additional £800 million. So I guess that's not good for the police, you know. But the Commissioner of Police said, well, we're back to 2,000 frontline police officers now, you know. So again, I'm thinking, oh well, you know, that sounds okay. But I have friends that are serving police officers, and the thing at the moment seems to be specialist task forces. You know, so we have a task force for pretty much everything, for drugs, for firearms, for knife crime, for, you know. But as I've just said, police budget's been cut by £600 million, and an additional £800 million has to be cut over the next 2 years. So every time we finance one of these super duper specialist task forces, what we're doing is we're taking the budget out of frontline policing. You know, so you're going to end up with a situation where you have a population of maybe, you know, 200,000 people, and on the street, on call, able to respond, you will have between 5 and 8 officers to cover that area. You know, and so frontline policing is in crisis. The London Ambulance Service, biggest ambulance service in the world, we're having to go abroad to recruit frontline ambulance paramedics, and the ambulance service has put its hands up recently and also admitted that the London Ambulance Service is in crisis. It can't hit its response times. It has staffing shortages, and it is in trouble. The London Fire Brigade, about 6 to 8 months ago, the Mayor of London, a guy called Boris Johnson, he closed 10 fire stations in London. So they shut 10 frontline fire stations in the Greater London area, and the reason they did that is because they had to make budget cuts. So here's something I want to put on the table for you, and this is me reading between the lines, but if you can't pay your emergency services, you're in trouble as a society, as a country. There's no other way to look at it, and I think that if the United Kingdom was a business, it would be filing for bankruptcy, or it would be going into receivership. Now, the newly elected government have just said that they are going to cut the welfare budget, so that's all the people on unemployment benefit, housing benefit, all of the social benefits have to be cut by an additional £12 billion. So some of that I agree with. Some of that, people sitting back malingering, living off the state, I don't really agree with. The welfare state was about, when I started work, I kind of thought that the arrangement was that I pay tax on everything I earn and everything I spend. I pay my national insurance contributions, and if I fall on hard times, the state will help me. But there have been I've been very fortunate, but there have been 2 times in my life where I have gone to the state for some help, and they haven't helped me at all. I didn't qualify. It was 3 months before they were going to give me any help whatsoever, and events unfolded, and I never went back. So I kind of feel really that the government reneged on their part of the deal, because I paid my taxes and I paid my national insurance contributions, and the government were going to look after me if I needed any help. Well, they didn't, and I kind of feel that I should be entitled to all that money back, because they didn't keep their side of the bargain. So I'm looking at the United Kingdom, and I understand that the only way to get out of trouble is with a positive mental attitude. There's no point focusing on all the things that are wrong and how terrible it all is, because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Things just go from bad to worse, and then we're all in trouble. But the idea that it's summertime, there are a lot more people employed, we've got a new government and everything in the garden is rosy, couldn't be further from the truth. I think that we are definitely in trouble, but there's a few underlying things that I don't think people are getting, and one of those is the Greek debt. So Greece are teetering on the edge of having to come out of the European Union. They have to find a payment of €1 billion within the next 30 days. It's busy being renegotiated as we speak, and I think it will be renegotiated because there's no alternative. But what a lot of people don't realise is that the City of London is one of the financial centres for definitely for Europe and globally. It's a financial centre, and a lot of the Greek debt is owned by the City of London, by banking corporations that bank trade from the UK, so the previous governor of the Bank of England several years ago now turned round to the banking industries in the UK and said, if you have a liability within the euro, get out of it at almost any cost, and a lot of people did. But a lot of people couldn't get out of Greek debt, because what's the point of foreclosing on a debt, when the person hasn't got the resources and can't pay, so they file for bankruptcy, you don't get your money. So the City of London really had everything to gain and nothing to lose by being patient, trying to negotiate terms. But the City of London own 80 billion euros of European debt. So if Greece does go pop, the repercussions will be felt firsthand in the City of London, without question. 80 billion euros is enough for us to see a run on a high street bank. Now the government have turned around and said it'll issue bonds if you have 35 grand in the bank, less than £35,000, they will safeguard that sum, and that's great. But we're talking about banks, massive financial institutions that have Greek debt in play. So that doesn't make me feel very secure about the kind of environment that we are in at the moment. And then we got the kind of the global situation. We've got Putin and we have ISIS, kind of in the wings, and that's all kind of out of hand. We got Libya and Syria that have practically failed states. At the port in Calais, we've almost got sort of riots with illegal immigrants trying to board private cars, lorries, anything to get over into the UK. So we've got a massive kind of immigration problem that is sort of teetering on the border that could get very kind of out of control very quickly. So that's what's going on. That's the backstory to all the lovely beautiful sunny weather and our retail. That's a good thing. That's a story broke yesterday about retail. Retail in the high street has improved by 49%, and so that's got to be a good thing, isn't it? That's more jobs. That's more people paying tax. That's got to be a good thing. Right. But when you look at that 49% of growth in the retail sector, it's down to budget shops. It's down to Poundland who have expanded. It's down to your Costco's and your Aldi's and your bottom end budget purchases. So I would turn around and say, if that sector is growing so fast, well, why is it? Why is it growing? Where's the demand coming from? And of course, the answer is that the reason that sector is growing so fast is because people haven't got the disposable income that they used to have, to shop at the kind of bigger stores. Tesco's is our major supermarket chain, and that took quite a big hit. Sainsbury's, all the kind of top end superstores, their profit margins are down if they're in profit at all, and some of them have made substantial losses. So I think people, regular people, are focusing on shopping for less. And I would turn around and say the reason people are focusing on shopping for less isn't because it's just good sense. It's because there's an awful lot of people out there that haven't got very much money, or that don't know where the next pay packet is coming from, and that's why that sector is growing so quickly. So what I've been doing is kind of putting a little bit of energy into the backstory, into why these things are happening, and trying to come up with some conclusions. So that takes me back to kind of prepping. So I'm rebuilding my truck at the moment, and I'm probably going to spend another £200 or £300 on it. But if I'd have taken it to the garage, if I'd have taken it somewhere to have it done, that job would have cost me £1,000. So backhandedly, I'm trying to put a little bit of money aside, because prepping for me was always really simple. It was put a little bit aside today because tomorrow just might be a bit tougher. And I think with all of the things in the wind that I've highlighted, that I don't feel secure. I don't feel good about being in the UK. I feel great about my little family and my little life, and we're fit and we're well and we're happy. But I think there's an awful lot of things in the wind that could knock us and regular working class people, knock us for six. So I think what I'm doing is, over the last few weeks, I've been going over my preps. I've dragged my diesel generator out and make sure that worked. I'm rebuilding my truck because if it all comes in top, I need that to be reliable. I've gone through some of my preps, and I have disposed of stuff that was that I thought was out of date, and set about replacing it. So I'm kind of stocking up on the obvious, so I want to be able to bake my own bread, loads of pasta, loads of rice, so just good, wholesome, bulk food storage that I can put a really good dinner on the table for my little family, for at least the next kind of 3 to 6 months, and so slowly but surely I've been working through all of the preps that I have kind of put in place. Rechargeable batteries, an off-grid charging system. I've got a little bit of diesel stored at a friend's farm, a couple of 1,000 litres, and so on and so on. But I'm putting energy into my own preparedness, and subsequently my own family's self-reliance, because I think that the UK are in trouble. When you can't pay your emergency services, you are in trouble. The government, for the first time ever, we normally spend 2% of our gross domestic product. That's practically 2% of all the taxes that the UK government collect. We normally spend on defence. Well, this year is the first year that we haven't done that, and NATO and Europe are up in arms. They're worried about their military capability, and like I said, you've got ISIS in the wind, you've got kind of Putin. Recently we have had incursions from Russian bombers and fighter aircraft into British airspace, and I'm sure it's a little sort of jousting competition that goes on all the time, but it just seems a little bit more kind of aggressive than it used to be. The other thing that we've got is we've got the investigations into the allocation of the World Cup, and multi-million pound bribes, and in the wind is the prospect of taking the World Cup back from Russia, and they're not going to be too happy about that, So I think international relations aren't great, you know, and little rumblings of the sort of Cold War, you know, I think are kind of in the air. So all of those things tell me that the thing to do isn't to kind of hide under the bed. The thing to do is to be proactive, to start to get a little bit more gear together, some more preps to go through stuff, to renew it, to make sure it works, and to put my foot kind of on the gas, really, not to take my foot off the gas and say, oh, you know, it's summer, you know, none of us are using our central heating, you know, we're not walking around in jumpers, it's not freezing cold, life is easy, life is good, you know. But I think it could change for us very, very quickly, you know. So like I say, this is me looking at the backstory, looking at what's going on in the news, in the world, and thinking, hang on a minute, this I think is there's enough uncertainty, you know, to maybe accelerate my kind of preps and make sure within myself that I feel confident that you know, if anything happens, if my wife is made redundant, you know, whatever it is, that we can cope, that it's not going to hit us, you know, like a rock, and that we have a position that we can just tick along from, you know, just maintain kind of where we are, you know. The other thing that's happened is, you know, in 2008 we had 2.6 million people unemployed. Well, here we are, 2015, and we have got 1.9 million people unemployed. Now, the government have done several things to reduce that number. They've removed an awful lot of people off of unemployment benefit, that they've just turned around and said, you're capable of working, so, you know, make greater efforts and get back to work, and I think that's all good. But hang on a minute, I mean, that's 7 years. 7 years of the government focusing its energies on unemployment, and all we've managed to do is really to get 100,000 people back in work a year. That doesn't sound a lot to me. That doesn't sound a lot when you're talking about, I mean, almost an open-ended budget, you know. So the other thing that they did is, because people didn't qualify for unemployment benefit or state support, you know, what they became was self-employed. So the amount of self-employed people that work for themselves, people that get casual work and are paid an hourly rate, has increased by 75%. So a lot of people have been shifted from the unemployment figures into self-employment. But it doesn't mean saying that they're working. They're not earning enough money to pay tax and national insurance contributions. And I would have thought there's an awful lot of self-employed people out there that are kind of bang up against it and struggling, you know. So I don't think that is the solution that it kind of appears to be. I think that is really the government of the day just cooking the books. So they're all the things that I think are in the wind for the UK. I think that now is the time to get back into preps, to like I say, put a little bit aside today, because I think tomorrow just might be a bit tougher, and that's my two penneth. So if you've got any ideas on it yourself, you know, I'd love to hear them. Good ideas are a two-way street, you know, so like I say, I'm going through my preps. I'm hoping other people have got ideas that I haven't even thought of, you know, but I'm putting away a little bit more, you know, and I feel in my heart that these are very uncertain times. As for the kind of bushcraft and survival and preparedness, I'm going to be at the Prepper Meet in July. I'm going to continue to probably get away kind of once a month, you know. But like I say, what that gives you is that practicing those skills makes it easier for you to be self-reliant, and that's all it does. So we're not all going to run away and live in the forest, you know. What we're going to do is we are going to bring those skills home, you know. So if the power, if the electricity, if the water goes off, if anything unforeseen happens, that's when you fall back on those skills. You don't go anywhere. You just still have the ability to put a meal on the table for the family, you know. I set people a little task some years ago, and I turned around and said, you know, go out in the garden and bake a loaf of bread. Bake bread off grid, because if you can bake a loaf of bread is a stable diet for a sixth of the world's population, you know. So if you can bake a loaf of bread off grid, you're fixed. You know, if you can cook a loaf of bread, you can probably prepare almost anything, you know. And that's why a lot of my films have cooking in them, you know, because I'm just trying to show people that we don't need gas and electricity and running water, and you know, there are lots and lots and lots of places in the world, you know. We could talk about Syria and Libya, you know. If we were having a conversation with Gaddafi 20 years ago, and we turned around to him and said, well, in 2015 Libya will be a failed state and it will be rife with civil war, he'd have laughed at us. But that really happened, and millions of people live there, you know, and the people still living there don't have gas, don't have electricity, don't have running water, don't have medical services, don't have education for their kids, and that really happened, you know. So I'm not saying that could possibly happen in the UK, but I look around the world, you know. Iraq and Afghanistan aren't any more stable today than they were. Look at immigration coming from Africa, you know. Italy are taking 4,000 immigrants a week. 4,000 people are arriving every week, you know, and Italy can't cope with that, and guess where they are? They're Europe, you know. So Italy would bang up against it, Greece would bang up against it, Spain are in trouble, you know. Unemployment in Spain, youth unemployment in Spain is running at something ridiculous, you know, over 70%. So I think with all of this going on around us, it's just good sense for you to have a self-reliant preparedness, call it what you will, you know, position, you know. But I see an awful lot of people that used to talk about it but don't anymore, that were very enthusiastic kind of preppers, but I haven't heard too much from them in quite a while. And that's what I think's going on around us. So if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them, because you know, I'm not the font of all knowledge. You know, people call me the British prepper, which always makes me chuckle, you know, because I guess what I'm doing is what everyone else is doing. I'm making it up as I go along. You know, if I see something coming down the tracks at me and my little family, I'm trying to put something in place so that it doesn't knock us for six. I'm trying to get out of the way so that you know, so it doesn't hit us perhaps as hard as it will some, you know. That's my two penneth, really. I just wanted to put this up. This is a film about self-reliance, about preparedness, about where I am and what I'm up to, but I want to know where you are. I want to know what you're up to. If you think that Roach is a madman, that's fine. That's alright, I can take that one on the chin. But if you've made preparations and plans for yourself, I'd quite like to hear about them, because I may well have missed something, you know. And like I say, good ideas are a two-way street. I learn so much from people out there that I watch, that I follow, that send me comments, that, you know, I'll post something and they'll say, oh, but, you know, have you thought about this, or you thought about that? I started to carry spares to repair my vehicle. I've started to carry motor oil and gear oil and spare parts for the truck and stuff like that, you know, that I've added those to my preps, you know, because I think without without transport, life is going to be very, very difficult, you know. So that's kind of where I am. I guess I need to kind of roll this up now. I'd just like to say, you know, thanks very much for watching. Thanks for all of your kind of support and comments. I guess this is where I say, you know, please thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, and if you are watching on Facebook, please follow. As always, any comments, love to hear them. Back soon.